Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter is what I'm going to be talking about today. Shout out Potter Puppet Pals. If you guys have not seen that, go check it out. It's a fun little puppet adaptation of Harry Potter that was, from old school YouTube, like 15, 20 years ago. It's crazy it's been that long. So that partially inspired me to make this video today. But obviously, if you guys saw my last video, you can see why I'm making this video. Today, I will be talking about Sorcerer's Stone in particular. Now, if you insist to me that it's called the Philosopher's Stone, I really don't care. That's cool if you want to call it that. I just call it that because that's what I know it as an American. That's how I grew up knowing what it was. So that's just what I call it. It's Philosopher's Stone to you, cool. I don't really care either which way. Harry Potter is the, how do I go about doing this? So I'm coming at this from a Catholic perspective, right? And of course, like I mentioned in my last video, I encounter lots of anti-Harry Potter sentiment in my own religious community. Now, it's not, when I make a Catholic case for Harry Potter, I'm not saying that people outside of the Catholic Church, people who come from different traditions, can't enjoy Harry Potter or see good things in it that align with their values. That's mark of great literature, that people from different cultures can enjoy something, like the Iliad, the Odyssey, Dante's Inferno, Shakespeare, the Chinese Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I think is what it's called, Musashi from Japan. Now, going into Sorcerer's Stone. So I think Harry Potter it's a wonderfully simple yet sophisticated, beautiful story of family, loyalty, tradition, and love. Harry Potter is the Chad mythical tale of the boy who lived. It's pro-life, you see? It's so simple yet so powerful. The boy who lived, in that statement, right? In that name that Harry Potter, he's dubbed the boy who lived. It's the ultimate affirmation of the sanctity of human life, body, mind, and soul, which, of course, all come under attack by the Dark Lord, Voldemort. Harry is destined to defeat the Dark Lord through the power the Dark Lord knoweth not, which is love. So you can see that there's no radical individualism or the harmful occultism to be found here. I've looked into this, trying to find these things that a lot of my fellow Catholics try to critique in the series, yet, being quite honest, I really just don't see it. And the more I look into it, would I argue, I think it actually is more, it just becomes more Christian, and particularly Catholic. I think you could make the argument, which we're going to touch upon that a little bit in here, and it gets even more so in Chamber of Secrets and the other entries. So, the Sorcerer's Stone is very much an initiation, right? Which is very much how we go in our lives, right? Our lives are an initiation, right? How we learn about the Gospels, right? We learn about Jesus Christ. We learn about the truths, the ancient, eternal truths of the world, right? So the world is very much, our lives are very much an initiation. We have this kind of first point where we learn about Christ, the history of his church and all that. So Harry goes from the kind of sterile, boring, oppressive, secular world, right? His parents were murdered by Voldemort, and so he has to live with his aunt and uncle and cousin, who, of course, because this is British, they are so horrible to him. Kind of like it's very much a homage to like Roald Dahl, right? And a lot of the other kind of British things of like the adults are just very, authoritarian, and it's about like child trauma and all that kind of stuff. So I think J.K. Rowling blends a lot of the great British authors, Tolkien, Lewis, Dahl, and she kind of she blends all those, mixes them with, the classical Western tradition, which I touched on in the first video, classical mythology, right? Greco-Roman mythology, Germanic kind of pagan folklore, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'll clarify that. And so she blends and Christianity, right? So all of these systems blend together to create something so wonderfully simple, yet so just it's like I'm trying to find the right word for it. I mean, beautiful is. I mean, it is. I mean, it's a beautiful story, right? It's a simple story, yet it is paradoxically complex and sophisticated. I remember I saw a YouTube video. It was she I forget what her name is. I'll try to find the video and link it in the bottom. She talked a lot about that, how Harry Potter is just this wonderful paradox of simplicity and complexity, and I would agree with that 100%. So Harry goes from the dull kind of secular muggle world, muggle meaning non-magic person, and he is taken into, he discovers this hidden sacred world, the wizarding world, right? And I think this very much can mirror our own experiences of people, you know, as we, whether or not we're cradle Catholics or reverts, converts, we all go through this stage where we learn about the great wonders of the faith, right? And I think Harry kind of goes through that here in this story. And so he discovers the hidden magical world through the brick wall that leads into Diagon Alley, the kind of Times Square, so to speak, of the wizarding world, right? And he's brought here by Hagrid, the half-giant keeper of the grounds of Hogwarts. He's like a hunter, too. There's a lot of interesting things going on. He's one of the most popular characters, right? And so he leads him into Hogwarts. He gives him the letter, finally, that his aunt and uncle were trying to, you know, quadrupling down upon to make sure he doesn't find out about any of his actual lineage, story, any of that stuff. And so Hagrid finally gives it to him. So he's kind of like the gateway that leads you into this whole thing. He's very much like a kind of Jethro figure in terms of the story of Moses, right? And speaking of Moses, there's tons of Moses imagery. Harry is saved actually by Hagrid after Voldemort murders his parents. Hagrid takes Harry, and you see the, like I said, Moses imagery. You see baby Harry in the cloth, you know, being brought to safety, very much like baby Moses in the basket, right? Being, you know, delivered to safety after infanticide, right? It's miraculous, if you will. Hogwarts very much functions as a kind of sacred institution. It's not a one-to-one. It's applicable in many different categories, right? It is, well, it's a school, right? Like I talked about in the first video, it's the school that we all wish we went to, right? And thankfully in my life, I have the privilege of getting to say that I did get to go to a school that felt very much like Hogwarts to me. And I learned a lot there. And I'm eternally grateful for that wonderful education that I received. So Hogwarts has, let's see, lots of symbolic architecture. There's 4 houses, which recall, you know, ideas of heraldry, tradition, even elemental association. So you have the 4 houses of Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin, right? So Gryffindor is very much associated with fire. They're the brave, heroic leaders. Hufflepuff, which actually I think I took the test. I'm in Hufflepuff because, you know, I kind of got the tism, unless in case you didn't notice. So Hufflepuff is associated with earth. They love plants. They love, you know, like they're very loyal. They're very good friends, you know. They're very much kind of like the kind of scholastic type figures. They also very much embody the kind of spirit of St. Francis of Assisi, right? And like they kind of like a little bit, you know, spurgy. Yeah, try not to use too much Jay Dyer terminology. I don't want to feel like you guys to think that I'm copying him. I have been inspired a lot by him and other people, but I'm trying to craft my own take here. And then you have Ravenclaw, which is the sort of like the smart people, right? They have all of like the wisdom and whatnot, and they're associated with air, right? Because the raven flies and all that kind of stuff. Air, like up to God, like they're almost like in like a higher intellectual, spiritual. I don't know. My ideas are a little bit all over the place, but I just want this to feel natural, right? And Slytherin is the house associated with water, because of the kind of hidden depths. Like they have a sort of underworld quality to them. And many of the people in Slytherin house come from aristocratic or privileged backgrounds, you could say. That doesn't mean they're all bad, but unfortunately, Slytherin is the house in the story who has produced the most dark wizards, the most infamous example being Voldemort himself, or Tom Riddle, we come to know was his real name in Chamber of Secrets. There's also lots of things in Hogwarts that are very symbolic. So Fluffy, the three-headed dog that guards the entrance to the trapdoor entrance to the sort of symbolic underworld where Harry has to get the Sorcerer's Stone before Voldemort does. It was put there by Voldemort by Dumbledore, and all of the other teachers put their own enchantments to protect, there's different stages, different tasks that Harry has to overcome. He has to, very early on, he is presented with multiple tasks, tests, so to speak. The first of which I would say really is when he comes in the Wizarding World and he's going to Hogwarts. He meets the Weasleys. Ron is a guy who's going to be in the same year as him, and so he's like, okay, this guy's here. He seems cool. I'll roll with him. He's got a nice big family. They all love each other. So that's kind of that was his first introduction to magical people his age, right? But not too long after, he learns that not everyone in the Wizarding World is like the Weasleys. He meets the infamous bully character Draco Malfoy. Potter, 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 you'll never catch me, Potter. And then my siblings and I would always say, because he is the gingerbread man. But I digress. Now, Harry is tempted, right, in this situation, because Draco Malfoy offers him friendship, promising that, oh no, the Weasleys, they're poor, they're backwards, they're lame. You need to be with me, with the cool kids, right? Draco's the cool kids. But Harry realizes that, no, the Weasleys are actually the cool kids. Malfoy tells him, you don't want to end up making friends with a wrong sort. And Harry boldly pushes back and says, I think I could tell the wrong sort myself, thanks. And that will be to set the stage for their conflict throughout the series. Now, sorry, I've been rambling a lot, but that's just kind of how I like to do these. Fluffy is very much Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guards the underworld, but also, especially in the way the movie presents it, it's also very reminiscent of the epicenter of like the lowest point of the underworld in Dante's Inferno, where Satan is he's frozen, like the lowest level is frozen, right? And he's constantly just breathing, which just keeps everything even more frozen. You could feel this how the way that Fluffy, when he's asleep, they go to get him, they go to the trapdoor and they have to figure out a way to get past him. And he's put to sleep by the music that's playing. They think it's Snape. Actually, Snape, yeah, because Snape is the shapeshifter character. You feel like you hear and you feel the heavy breathing of Fluffy, and the characters like, ooh, it's just kind of, but it's very kind of subtle too, very much like Dante's Inferno, right, with the devil at the lowest ring of hell. Another interesting thing is there's Christmas in the story. The people interpret this a lot of ways. I think it could be Christian. It could also be, some people, I think in the anti-category, could see this as like, going on the pagan LARP of, oh, Christmas is actually pagan or whatever. And of course, some elements do come, like the aesthetics do come from the kind of pre-existing Germanic pagan peoples, but it has been baptized. So there's nothing sinful about, decorating a tree, right? But I'm getting off topic. Hogwarts very much operates almost like an intelligence agency. It's really, but like in a good way, right? Dumbledore, the mythical sage, Merlinian Odinic wanderer character, is very much like the master. Well, he's the headmaster of Hogwarts, and like I said, Hogwarts almost functions like a microcosm of the world, in the way that we view the world as Catholics. God is on top, and everyone, it's the pyramid, right? And everything comes from God, and everything is ordered in a hierarchical, structured way. And the fellow teachers at Hogwarts, kind of take lead from Dumbledore. So they kind of act as like fixers or handlers, if you will. And of course, Dumbledore is the ultimate handler in the way. Jay Dyer actually talked about that, how in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf he's like a handler, but like in a good way. I would say Dumbledore fulfills the same role, even though he's a little bit different. Another part of Dumbledore's character, so he's the mythical sage. He's Merlinian, he's Odinic, and I would argue he also appears to be very much episcopal or priestly. You could see in the first two films, Richard Harris, the way he's portrayed. Dumbledore wears red robes, and he has the long white beard, right, which is very reminiscent of St. Nicholas, Santa Claus. Bishops would wear the red robes and all that kind of stuff. So Dumbledore he's very clerical, and like I've talked about in my last video, he very much functions as an icon of God the Father. He's not literally God the Father in the story. I'm not saying he's God in the Harry Potter universe, but he reflects in a lot of ways the aspects that are associated with God the Father in the Holy Trinity. Now, the story, so it goes through this kind of initiation thing. Now, Hagrid brings him into the wizarding world, and he has to buy all of his supplies to go to Hogwarts, right? And so, like I've talked about in my first video, and I don't want to just feel like I'm reiterating a lot of things from my first video, Hogwarts is almost like a descendant of the classical Western tradition, classical Western education. You have to learn all the subjects. They teach you their kind of equivalent of the trivium and the quadrivium, and they teach you practical skills. They teach you sporting, like sports. You play Quidditch, the broomstick game, and all that kind of stuff. There's other games you could play, but it very much forms the whole person, which is the goal of the classical Western tradition / education, which obviously is far superior than the current model of public secular education, which is terrible and is the worst. And I'm so glad throughout my whole life I never had to go to anything like that. Now, the objects that Harry has to buy and the tools that the wizards use, they're not mere tools to accomplish tasks. Kind of like how Hogwarts, you don't just go to learn how to cast spells. It's character formation, right? Now you have Ollivander, the wand maker. Harry has to get a wand where he says the wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter, and not the other way around, right? So these wands, these weapons function almost like in a mythological, legendary category of, like, they have real spiritual power. They're not just used to, like it's not just amoral, just kind of impersonal. Like, I don't know if that's the right term, but you can see what I'm getting at. Like, there's real spiritual power behind. Like, it's not mere matter, I guess is what I'm saying. And of course, Ollivander, the wand maker. This is extremely reminiscent of, like, Celebrimbor, the elven smiths and craftsmen in Tolkien, the dwarven smiths, Hephaestus, right? Like I said, it's a bunch of different traditions that are kind of wonderfully and geniusly, I would argue, blended together. I don't really think some people think that she's kind of ripping off a lot of these people or being a copycat. I don't see it that way. If you do, that's cool. I just disagree. This is how I read it. And we learn that the wand that chooses Harry, Ollivander, curious. Sorry, sir. What's curious? What is curious is that, so all wands have to come from, all wands have a core, right? Which comes from a part of an animal, right? So wands can be made from, like, dragon heartstring is one of the big ones. There's a lot of other ones I forgot, but so Harry, some are more common than others, and we actually learn that Harry's wand is actually made from the rarest of animal parts, which is the phoenix feather. And we learn later in the series that this very feather came from Fox, the phoenix, the legendary bird, the apex bird that is an icon of God, the Holy Spirit. I'll touch upon that in the Chamber of Secrets. I'll expound upon that in the Chamber of Secrets analysis. So Fox, the phoenix, sorry, I just got some weird notification on my phone. So Fox gave gave two feathers. One went to Harry's wand and the other one is in Voldemort's wand. I think this is very curious because it shows how we're all kind of given the same chance, I guess you could say. Like, I mean, even if we're judged differently by God, we are all given an opportunity. We're all given a chance, right, to be saved. And so I kind of like how Harry and Voldemort's wands are from the same source. But of course, one chooses the side of good, the other chooses the side of evil. Because like I touched on in the first video, Voldemort is very much an antichrist figure. He's the total inversion of all that is good, true, and beautiful, and he has forsaken his soul by splitting it through murder and hiding it in these occult objects, which are called Horcruxes. That's something we learn in the Half-Blood Prince, but I thought that was interesting to bring up. So, let's see. We also have the fact that I think the story very much deals with, so you go through this initiation, this all that kind of stuff. So later on in the story, it becomes much more introspective, right? It deals a lot with desire, temptation, and the shadow self. We learn that, of course, initially when he learns about the Wizarding World, he learns that not all reality is what it seems, and of course he learns that not all of the people in the Wizarding World are who they seem. There's lots of shape-shifter characters. Snape, the vampiric, mean, authoritarian teacher, his allegiance is not very clear. Harry doesn't know how to feel about him. When he sees him initially, it kind of makes his scar hurt. Because the scar is a curse, right? And then obviously, so he can feel someone's off, right? And he does not suspect Quirrell, which I'm going to go into just in a second. But so it deals with these kind of ideas of desire, temptation, and whatnot, introspection, the shadow self. There's lots of objects that pertain to the subconscious, and just things hidden behind the veil. Literally, Harry has an invisibility cloak. He inherits this from his father, who we later learn is descended from the Peverell line, which these kind of ideas of lineage, like I've said in my first video, bring up ideas of, well, not just Christ's lineage from the Davidic line, but in a more literary example, Aragorn being descended from the Númenóreans, right, and Isildur. He's Isildur's heir. Harry is Peverell's heir, Ignotus Peverell, one of the three brothers we will learn about in the end of the series. So he has an invisibility cloak, which of course he uses to do shenanigans in the castle. And it is through these kind of ventures with his invisibility cloak, which we inherited from his dad, but we can kind of fill in the gaps that Dumbledore, kind of gave it to him as a Christmas present. That's a great Christmas present, right? So he sees, he gets into, of course, he's invisible, he can't see him, but he stumbles upon a conflict, an altercation between Professor Snape, who I mentioned, and Quirrell, who we are kind of led to believe is innocent, and they're talking about where their loyalties lie and all that stuff. So, like, it's this constant mystery. These are great mystery stories. That's something David Stewart talked about a lot. The books, and I think the movies function in the same vein. Now, it is through this when Harry has to get an escape because it just gets a little too much. He goes into a room for refuge where he discovers the Mirror of Erised. And now this mirror, this magical mirror, shows someone their heart's greatest desire, right? Let me see. I had some specific things I wanted to say. Let me see. Hold on one second. Yes. So the mirror, Dumbledore tells him, shows us neither knowledge nor truth. It is very much the kind of warning against unhealthy fantasy, right? Which, of course, I know people think that this is unhealthy fantasy. It's not. It's just what Harry Potter really is. It's very much in the same spiritual kind of kinship that Tolkien and Lewis are in. Lord of the Rings, Narnia, Harry Potter. It takes people away from the fake and gay, soulless British Empire, England or Britain, and now we're in fantasy Britain. And it's really cool. Harry Potter, Harry. I mean, he's Saint George. He's Saint George for modern people, right? I mean, he slays the dragon or the serpent, right? Saves the damsel in distress. It's just classic, timeless themes, and that's what makes this story so great. The Mirror of Erised is very much like, also similar to Voldemort. It's like an inversion, right? I mean, literally, the name Erised is just desire spelled backwards. So you can see this kind of nefarious element to this mirror, because of course the magic in the world has moral weight. There's good magic, bad magic, and all this kind of stuff. And it's also a kind of prophetic expose of AI, right? Because we can just go to ChatGPT, we could go to Grok, or I don't even know what the X one is, and we can ask it to show us whatever we want, right? And not only that, whatever my heart's greatest desire is, which, I mean, it's Jesus, right? That's what it should all be. But of course, I could think of some other secondary thing that I really want, right? I guess like a piano or something like that. I really want a piano, and I can just type it in, show me with the piano, and I'm the greatest pianist, and it'll show me that, right? And Dumbledore tells Harry that the happiest, because Harry doesn't really know what it is. He just sees, because when Harry looks into the mirror, he sees his parents. In the book, you see, like, it talks about how he sees his whole family that he never knew, the whole inheritance that he was robbed of, all his aunts and uncles, grandparents, all the Potters, and he sees little parts of him, like how, like, I think he talked about how, like, his great uncle had his knees or something like that. And so, but in the movie, you see it's just his parents, right? Which I still think serves the same purpose. And because, I mean, that's what he always wanted. He was just craving for that love that he was denied from when he was a kid with his evil aunt and uncle. And so when Dumbledore, in his fixer style, appears seemingly out of nowhere when Harry is at the Mirror of Erised, he keeps, it's very much, it has an addictive quality, right? Harry keeps sneaking out to go see it, and then he's just in there all night looking at the mirror, which of course there's nothing wrong with desiring to have a family, right? But of course you can't let that distract you from reality, knowledge, or truth, like Dumbledore says. And so Dumbledore, when he says, I think given how much time you've spent with this mirror, you would know what it does. And Harry's like, well, it just shows us what you want, right? And this kind of shows how the people who are addicted to things don't really understand what they're dealing with, right? Because, of course, the devil is the ultimate liar. He lurks in the shadows and he draws people in gradually. And Dumbledore tells him that the happiest man in the world, if he were to look into the mirror, would see nothing but himself as he is, right? So you can see there's a huge theme of being thankful for what you have, right? Of course, when Dumbledore explains basically what I'm telling you right now, he says it will be moved to a new home, which we'll eventually discover in the final showdown between Harry and Voldemort. The mirror is there. And of course, waiting for Harry at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, the deepest depths of the underworld, he assumes that it's going to be Snape, who enchanted all these things and is trying to get the stone. He's going to steal it, but then he learns, oh no, it's actually quivering Professor Quirrell, who of course is the ultimate representation of the snake, slimy, snot type character who we don't expect. We just assume, okay, he's just kind of like a piddly, just kind of whatever. But we learn, oh no, actually he is evil. And he's a liar. He hides behind this cloak of niceness and all that stuff. But then you realize he is actually, he's awful. Come here, Potter! No! It's crazy. It's intense, man. And Quirrell very much functions as a Janus type character. Of course, Janus, the figure in Roman mythology who has the two heads, right? And of course, we discover he literally has Voldemort on the back of his head, who's covered by the turban, which brings up the scene a lot of times because Voldemort tempts Harry. Quirrell wearing the turban and Voldemort being hidden by the turban very much brings images to our mind of Christ in the desert, right? And the devil trying to tempt Christ, right? So the stone, we see that Quirrell has not found it. And he's looking in the mirror that is there, and he says that he sees himself with the stone, but he doesn't know how to get it. And of course, Harry, after the all that stuff, he actually touches his pocket. He has the stone in his pocket, right? And of course, I know that the Sorcerer's Stone and the Philosopher's Stone is actually connected to real world alchemy and whatnot, which is harmful. I will grant the critics that point. However, I do not think that the way that the Philosopher's Stone functions in this story is equivalent to the real world Philosopher's Stone, because the Philosopher's Stone is very similar to the Ring of Power in Lord of the Rings, right? It's power, knowledge, transcending the bounds of space and time, right? Voldemort wants this stone because he wants to come back to life. I mean, he's alive, but so when Harry's mother, you see, this is why this is pro-life, and this is a beautiful story, is literally motherly sacrifice. Harry's mom, she gives her life, she shields her Harry from Voldemort, and she dies so that he can live. And because she did that for him, it put a mark on Harry's soul, right? Almost like a baptism, like I talked about in the last video. And this is greater, this love, like the magic, the true, the highest expression of magic, which is love in this story, is what ultimately triumphs, which ultimately allows Harry to triumph over good and evil. He doesn't win because he has more esoteric knowledge about magic, or he is like at a higher power level or whatever. No, he literally wins because he knows the power that the Dark Lord knoweth not, which is love. You see, this is awesome. This is great. It's Catholic. It's beautiful. It's just awesome, man. And I feel like if you're Catholic and you don't like this, I feel like you're really missing out on a beautiful work of literature. Great books, great films, fun stuff for the whole family, you know? Good for kids and adults. It's just such a versatile story, you know? I had another idea. I think the Philosopher's Stone can also represent Harry's soul, or just kind of like the kind of weighing of the soul, and like how you can keep it and sanctify it, or you could sell it, right? Voldemort promises Harry that if you just give me the stone, dude, I can bring back your parents, dude. I know you miss your parent, right? You can see how Voldemort is like a devil, antichrist type figure. He says that he can bring Harry's parents back, right? Just give me the stone. It's almost like the devil saying, you can have all this glory, you could do all this, you can become God. Just give me your soul, you know? So that's why I think that connection is kind of important. Let's see what else I got. Let's see. Sorry, I wrote a bunch of spur rambling notes for this. Let's see what else we got. Yeah. So ultimately, that's kind of all I really wanted to say. Is I think Harry Potter is a beautiful story of family, loyalty, tradition, love. And it's anti-relativist, right? Because Harry tells him, after he offers him the stone and all that stuff, he says, there is no good or evil, only power, and those too weak to seek it. And in Harry, in the boldest, most fierce rejection of this false worldview, says, you liar. That's false. That's BS, right? You're telling me there's no good or evil? And you're telling me, oh, I just give you this stone and you'll give it as if you won't just turn back on your promises? No, Harry sees right through this because of the blessings that his mother gave him through her sacrifice, which allows him to, he gives himself up in that moment because he doesn't even know what Quirrell or Voldemort is capable of doing. He doesn't know. He's still learning, but he says, no, this is not okay. Come on, let's go. let's throw some hands, right? Yeah, so ultimately, I think Harry Potter, it's beautiful. It's pro-life. It promotes the classical Western tradition. It allows people to fall in love with Western culture and education itself. It allows kids to, very much be re-enchanted from this contemporary, gross, sterile world we live in, and it allows us to go into a healthy escape, right? Which Tolkien talks about, that good fantasy does not cloud, it clarifies. And I would say that Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and the whole series very much clarifies morality. It affirms moral realism and the sanctity of human life through the Chad mythical tale of the boy who lived. Thank you very much for watching this video. I will be working on my analysis for Chamber of Secrets. I'm looking forward to it. I think this video came out really well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you agree, disagree, I'd be happy to hear it. Yeah, God bless.